Hey, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I want to welcome you to our public hearing for proposed data center at 10385 Hagerty Road in Van Buren Township. Like I said, I'm with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. I'll be moderating tonight's session. I just want to kick us off by going through a few housekeeping guidelines. Some of you may have been with us before for other online public meetings, some may not. So just to let you know how we usually run things, we'll start out by doing some introductions with the staff that are here tonight. Then we're going to kick it off with an informational session. It's really in two parts. Our session tonight, we have a informational session in which our EGLE staff person here is going to give a brief presentation about the proposed project. And then we're going to open it up to some questions and hopefully provide as many answers as we can for you. We'll take that up until about 6:30. And then at 6:30, we're going to switch gears and go into our actual public hearing. And during the public hearing, that's when it's your time for official comment for this proposed action. We're also going to talk about some things like other ways to submit an official comment, and we'll talk about who to contact for further information. In terms of housekeeping, the lines are all muted at this point. Once we get to the part where we do Q&A and we open it up for public comment, I'll explain how those lines will be unmuted for you to make your comments. You can also, during the Q&A session, if you want to submit any questions you want written, you can use the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar to submit any questions you might have. And like I said, we'll do our best to answer those during the time we have allotted for that. We are recording this public meeting. And like with all our public meetings, we post them up on our YouTube channel, and we'll try to get this one up there by tomorrow. Also, keep an eye on the chat. Natalie Brown, our community engagement coordinator, is with me this evening, and she's going to be dropping in some things into our chat. All right, at this time, I want to bring up our EGLE staff and have them introduce themselves. So if you can have John and Andy and Kyle and Ann come up. Go ahead, Andy. I guess John's first. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is John Jones. I am the Environmental Quality Analyst from the Warren District Office, and I am the staff that was assigned this permit application.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Good evening. My name is Andy Hartz. I'm one of the district supervisors here in the Water Resources Division in the Warren District Office.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Kyle Alexander. I'm the Field Operations Section Manager in the Water Resources Division.
And hi, I'm Ann Garwood, Supervisor of the Field Operations Support Section in Water Resources Division.
Okay, thank you all. So that is our EGLE team that's on with us tonight and be listening in throughout. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to John, and he's going to give us a quick presentation of the project. And John, you can just let me know when you want me to switch slides.
Yeah, you can go ahead and go to the first slide, please. So again, my name is John Jones, and I am the EGLE staff assigned to review this permit application. The permit applicant, Panattoni Development, has applied for a permit under Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams, and Part 303, Wetlands Protection of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act 1994, PA 451, as amended NREPA. Next, please. The purpose of the project is to construct a 1 gigabyte data center with supporting infrastructure. The project is located at the northeast intersection of Hagerty Road and I-94. It has a combined area of 282 acres. The project includes 5 buildings and associated parking, an on-site electrical substation, generators and cooling units, 6 stormwater ponds, paved roads for internal traffic circulation, and an extension of a high voltage power line onto the site. Next, please. This is a slide. I'm looking at it on a very small screen, but it's just a slide of the undeveloped condition of the site. You can see from in the sidebar there that the site contains both regulated and unregulated wetlands. It has 3 county drains that are going to be regulated as streams by EGLE. Woodlands, which is not typically something that is regulated by EGLE, but may be regulated locally, and just the topography of the site. Next, please. This slide is a good color slide that shows all the wetlands and streams that were identified on the site. And this map goes with, came from our wetland identification program through EGLE. So everything that you see on here in yellow would be a regulated wetland. The small pink blotches that you see are going to be unregulated wetland, and the blue lines are going to be those regulated stream features on the site. Next, please. Again, like on my screen, this is not a real easy slide to see, but this is an overlay of the proposed development, all the buildings, roads, parking, etc., overlaid on that wetland map that you previously saw, where the wetlands would be indicated here by those kind of pinkish cross-hatched lines, just for a general kind of oversight of how this thing is proposed to sit on top of the existing features. Next, please. So the proposed resource impacts for this project, the applicant proposes to permanently impact 13.55 acres of wetland, install 6 culverts in regulated streams for internal road construction, 2 additional culverts for above ground cable crossings. They are proposing to fill and abandon approximately 573 linear feet of an existing stream channel for the purpose of constructing a building. Next. Yeah. Slide up one, Jim.
Hey, John, this is so this site plan, and then the next slide is proposed resources. That's what I have. Next one.
Yes, please.
Okay, good.
Sorry
about that.
So to continue on with the resource impacts, to construct 6 stormwater detention ponds within 500 feet of regulated stream that will discharge pre-treated stormwater runoff from the ponds to the regulated streams on site. Install 6 stormwater outfall structures with flared-in sections and riprap scour protection within those regulated streams. Next slide. And construct 2 clear span pedestrian bridges over regulated streams for the purpose of a new public sidewalk, and construct a high voltage power line above wetland with 2 of the supporting towers constructed within the regulated wetland. Proposed mitigation for the project, there's going to be mitigation proposed for both wetland impacts and stream impacts separately. Unavoidable wetland impacts are proposed to be mitigated through the purchase of wetland mitigation bank credits from an EGLE-approved wetland mitigation bank in the Huron River watershed, which is the same watershed as the site. Stream impacts are proposed to be mitigated by creating 1,174 linear feet of new stream channel on site. There is also federal involvement in this project. Under the provisions of Section 404 of the Federal Clean Water Act, the application will be reviewed concurrently by EPA. The application will also be reviewed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for potential impacts to federally protected species, including the American bald eagle. And that's it.
All right. Thanks, John. At this time, what we'd like to do is open it up for any questions people might have, and we can take it up till 6:30. If we're done early, we can just move right on to the hearing. I just want to remind people, if you have a question for our team here today, you can submit it using the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. You can also click the raise hand icon. And if you do that, we'll call your name and we'll unmute your line. If you're on the phone, it doesn't look like we have any phone-in callers, but if you were, you could hit *9 and we'd unmute your line that way. Natalie did put into the chat the link to access the document. So I think, John, some of the maps and stuff you were referring to in your presentation, those can be found through that link, right? In MindBiro. Yeah. And just to let everybody know, we've got about 51 people on the line here with us tonight. Okay, so I'm going to look at the Q&A box right now, and it looks like first question that came in, is the proposed stream mitigation being done on existing county drains?
No, that is a good question. Attempting to do stream mitigation on county drains is kind of a non-starter because as part of that mitigation process, one of the requirements for that is that we put a conservation easement over the new stream that, in perpetuity. And a lot of the counties, and Wayne County in particular, they're not comfortable with that arrangement. So it's been difficult to find drain projects that we could use for mitigation. There was a small reach of stream on the project that was not a dedicated county drain that I believe the applicant is proposing to do that mitigation on.
All right, thanks, John. Next question is, who is the owner of the data center?
The data center will be eventually owned by Google.
Okay. And I don't know, Anne, maybe this might be for you. John, you can decide. What is the practical utility of wetland mitigation bank credits?
Sure, I was going to work on typing response, but
Okay.
the wetland mitigation bank credits are used to ensure that the required mitigation, if a permit is ultimately issued, is constructed prior to or concurrently with any impacts that happen within the watershed and are located within the watershed or ecoregion, satisfying mitigation requirements.
Okay. And what kind of stream mitigation is being proposed? Also, which wetland mitigation bank?
I'm not sure if they've actually selected one mitigation bank at this point in time. At this point in the permit application review, we only need to know that, that's what their proposed mitigation will be, and that there's mitigation credits available in the watershed for that proposal to come to fruition. And they did give us that information. And then there was a stream mitigation question.
Yeah, the question was, well, I just lost it. But there's what was the stream mitigation project? What stream mitigation project were they going to use, and what was the wetland mitigation?
Yeah. So again, that is one of those issues that we have enough information to get to a public notice and a public hearing. They have, supported that they have enough area and a proper stream to get what's called functional uplift, to take that existing stream to make it better in terms of its functions and values and as an environmental resource. So we have enough evidence to support that and to get to this point in the application. The details of that stream mitigation package, so to speak, they're being worked out right now.
I just wanted to add to the wetland mitigation one. There is actually a bank identified for this one. It is Nicewander's Bird Marsh Wetland Mitigation Bank.
Thanks, Ann. Okay, this one deals kind of more with site location. Why does this need to be built in a wetland as opposed to finding a suitable upland site? Can you address that?
Yeah, part of the review process, does involve offsite alternatives where, we ask for a number of offsite alternatives that are commensurate with the size of the impacts that they're asking to create. And, we got to the point in the application where we felt like this site was suitable for this project. And right now, the goal is to try to minimize the impacts on that existing site.
Okay.
If anybody wants to add to that, please jump in.
Okay. Can the current regulated wetlands on the site receive the protection and perpetuity that the mitigation ones would? Considering even the best mitigation practices do not provide the same benefits as natural historic wetlands.
So kind of a two-part question there. First part, there is opportunity to take the remaining wetlands on the site that are not impacted and put those into a permanent conservation easement on larger projects. That's not uncommon. We're not at that point in the process here because we're still, trying to make a permit determination. So we haven't gotten into that level of detail, but it's been talked about. With regard to, I don't know if it was a question or a comment about the wetland mitigation banks. The wetland mitigation banks, in fact, have come a long way. And a lot of people that are familiar with, banks that were built by people that maybe didn't have the qualifications to build them. Yeah, there has been some poor mitigation projects in the past. The wetland mitigation banks, they're built by professional people. We take a large bond that we, only release when this thing meets certain criteria. And, in fact, current wetland mitigation banks have been very successful.
Okay. Here's one. Let me do your best to answer this one. Is EGLE aware of drift as a byproduct of open loop cooling towers? And did the effects of the annual discharge of dozens of tons of drift in the surrounding area factor into your impact analysis? I don't know if either you
That
want
would
to
not,
address the drift from the cooling
Yeah,
towers
that sounds
issue.
like some kind of air quality issue. That sounds like some kind of an emission from the land use, right? I don't even know what that word is.
Yeah, so this would be yeah. Yeah,
so I
the
think
air
I
emissions
think,
from the cooling towers, and
yeah,
if you've got air emissions, whether it be water vapor or whatever it is, that's what it sounds like we're talking about. But has any analysis been done on its impact to the surrounding areas in your impact analysis? Was that addressed in the impact analysis, I guess?
Yeah, our permit
yeah.
review is not going to address that.
Wouldn't address
No,
that?
that
Okay.
does not fall under 301 or 303. But I'm fairly certain that would be something that EGLE's air quality people would be regulating.
Yeah, it's just to clarify. So this hearing and meeting is related to the wetland and water resource impacts. Should a business have to emit or want to emit any air emissions, they would have to apply for an air permit most likely, and that's where that would be addressed. Okay, what types of wetlands would be impacted? Primarily forested wetlands, or what are we talking about? Or emergent wetlands?
Yeah, it's a mix. There are some nice woods in the kind of northern portion of the site that we're working hard to try to avoid. And there are some lower quality phragmite type wetlands, some scrub shrub. It's a mix.
Okay, if the goal is to minimize impacts to the site, why allow this level of community involvement? And community and environmental impact. Okay, let me read the start over again. Sorry, my question box just skipped. If the goal is to minimize impacts to the site, why allow this level of community and environmental impact in this first place?
I'm not sure if I'm
Yeah, nothing's been
understanding.
authorized yet. We haven't authorized anything, and our consideration of the permit application is the publishing of a public notice and holding public hearings. This is part of that process.
Okay. Will any chemical laden discharges like glycol from the cooling systems be released into the environment?
Again, that's probably something that's not subject to our review.
So that's not
It's-
something that'll be covered under your analysis for wetlands impact and stream impacts.
That's correct. We're looking, exclusively at those water resource features, wetlands and streams on this property. Yeah, processing and discharge of material and stuff like that. That's not germane to this application.
Okay. We do have a couple questions in here that are not quite related to this either, but I want to just bring it up. Maybe Andy or somebody on this team can explain maybe how the local the zoning and stuff plays into this. And one of the questions was about will there be any opportunities for small businesses or minority-owned businesses to participate as subcontractors? And yeah.
Yeah, no idea. We don't know. It's not really part of our review and part of the information we collect. And I presume
Yes.
they're talking about the building of the facility.
The
should a
building the
permit be
facility, right?
issued. Yeah, don't know.
Yeah, so anything related to the building the facility, that's really out of the scope of what this meeting would cover and what this staff would be able to answer.
Hey Jim,
Looking,
I'm just gonna chime in
yeah,
with
yeah,
there is a like rectangle blocking the slide. It might be the Q&A box. I've never seen that before, so I don't know if there's something open on your screen that's blocking it. Perfect. Thank
Jumping
you.
around, actually, right?
yeah. Can you see it now?
It's more
Yeah.
hidden.
More
Okay.
hidden, bottom right.
It's better.
Down at like,
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what that might be either, so
okay.
apologize for that if it is. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know what that could be. Sorry about that, folks, if there's anything.
Well, it doesn't stay in one spot too long, so.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with sometimes Zoom does crazy things. Okay. As long as it doesn't affect some other parts here. Let's look at our next one here. Are there how are potential chemicals discharged into local waterways? This person's asking about how local chemicals that are discharged aren't related to the wetlands permitting. So I guess maybe you could explain what exactly is covered in your review when you're looking at wetlands permitting, because I think there's some questions about, some of the chemicals that might be discharged. So maybe you can explain the scope of your review when you're looking at this type of permit.
I can handle that one real high level,
Sure.
John. So
Please.
generally speaking, our permit is looking at dredge and fill activities within wetlands and streams on this site under Part 303. That's the Wetlands Protection Statute, Part 301, inland lakes. If there is going to be any discharge into waters of the state, and I don't know if there are or not with this facility, that would be handled through an MPDES permit from the Water Resource Division, which would be a separate application and a separate review process from what John is faced with on this particular application.
Okay, just want to remind people, if you have a question, you can type it in the Q&A box and we'll hold it up for questions for a few more minutes. You can also click the raise hand icon. We can also open up for question that way. Is the black box thing away from the screen now? Or is it
Yeah, I
still
don't
there?
Yeah,
see
I
it
don't see
anymore.
it.
Okay, good. I think I might have fixed it. I don't know. I was trying to mess around while you guys were answering that question. Hopefully I fixed it. Okay. Um, okay. Again, some of these questions, I want to make sure people are aware of the scope of your review. So I'm going to ask them, but I want you guys to let people know if it's without your scope. Does the facility intend to use traditional evaporative cooling or a closed loop system? Have they registered through the water withdrawal assessment tool to ensure no adverse impacts to local aquifers? And are there any local aquifers?
I don't know that we know if they're using closed loop or not, but I was going to suggest we might, we do have Fran here with the environmental consultant. Maybe she could answer that question.
Okay. Fran, we're going to look for you and unmute your line. So if you're available to answer a question, that would be great. You are unmuted, so you can go ahead and please introduce yourself and where you're from, please.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fran Thompson, Bar Engineering. Um, I am unsure about the cooling system, but I can check, and there will not be a water draw from an aquifer. Um, all water to the site will be from a municipal source.
Okay. Thank you, Fran, for answering that. And we had a couple questions that came in related to water withdrawal. So thank you. Next question. What is the specific acreage of wetland and stream area being permanently destroyed or temporarily impacted? What are the mitigation and replacement ratios? Are they replacing impacted wetlands at a greater than 1-to-1 ratio?
So I believe in that introductory slide, we showed that there was proposed roughly 13 and a half, between 13 and 14 acres of proposed permanent impact. The temporary impacts were smaller, maybe around an acre. Yeah, the mitigation ratios are in statute, and you are required to, depending on the type of wetland that's being impacted, the mitigation ratios vary. For example, like an emergent wetland or a shrub wetland has to be mitigated at a ratio of a replacement of 1.5 to 1. Forested wetlands, which are most unique and rare and take the longest to grow, have to be replaced at a ratio of 2 to 1.
Okay. And how many stormwater outfall structures will be built? And are any of these outfall locations situated within a 100-year floodplain?
Yeah, I believe, so there's 6 ponds, and each one of those ponds will have an outfall associated with it to a stream or to a wetland adjacent to a stream. And so what's the second part of that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, floodplains. There's no regulated
Oh, yeah.
floodplain on yeah.
Yeah, so floodplain, EGLE regulates floodplains under Part 31 for certain projects that have an upstream contributing watershed of 2 square miles or more. This site does not have that watershed, so it is not being regulated by Part 31 or EGLE for floodplain.
Okay. Next question. Did the applicant do a thorough threatened and endangered species survey for protected state or federal species?
That might be a good question for Fran, if you would, please. And the reason for that is I guess I should give you some background on that. EGLE has kind of a unique relationship with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the EPA, in that we serve a role that is typically, served by sometimes the Army Corps of Engineers at a federal level, and because Michigan does what's typically done in other states by the feds. we're sort of responsible for making sure that all the endangered species, threatened and endangered species, stuff is properly screened and everything. But at this point in the application, we have not had any conversation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but I believe the applicant has and maybe could speak to that.
Fran Thompson,
Yeah.
did you want to address that one?
Yeah. Hi, Fran again. We have done a thorough threatened and endangered species survey on site, and we have been in coordination and communication with Fish and Wildlife on best management practice for those identified threatened and endangered species on site.
Yeah, and I just want to add that this application also is what we call a red file. So it has been provided to EPA, Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Corps for additional federal comment, giving Fish and Wildlife Service additional opportunity to provide feedback. And the applicant was required in the application process to complete the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service IPAC D key for Michigan, which is the screening of federal species. So there has been quite a bit initial work done. It's just ongoing.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. All right, we're gonna take one more question here, and then we're gonna have to move on to the next part of our evening. This one's kind of an interesting one, and maybe you guys could answer it the best you can. And that's, how is EGLE evaluating the cumulative impact of this data center along other regional developments on the watershed, rather than assessing this single site in isolation? You guys speak to that, cumulative impacts? Do you assess that, or how does that work?
Yeah, and thank you.
I'm back.
It's specific to data centers or specific to wetland impacts within the region, do you think, Jim?
Well, the way I'm reading this is that, so we're looking at this permit for this particular site, but there's other regional development going on in the same area, maybe in the same
Okay, yeah.
watershed
Right.
nearby. Do you look at everything cumulatively and how it impacts the watershed or the aquifers, whatever, or is it just this one site, or how do you evaluate that?
Sure.
Part 303, the wetland statute that we're reviewing this application under, along with Part 301, does require that cumulative impacts are part of that assessment. That means that the applicant has some responsibility to demonstrate how they've minimized cumulative impacts in the watershed or prevented further cumulative impacts. As part of our review, we also consider the existing cumulative impacts that have occurred already in the watershed and the potential for this project individually to contribute to or offset additional cumulative impacts in the watershed. It's a part of the review. No determination has yet been made. We are early in the review process for this application.
Great, thank you. Okay, team. It's after 6:30 now, and we do need to move it on to the next part of our evening, which is the public hearing part, where we actually take your comments, official comments for the record. I want to thank our team here for answering questions the best they could. I know there are some remaining questions in our Q&A box. Some are a little bit outside the scope of this meeting. I'm going to let our team evaluate those and us do their best to maybe answer directly while we're going through the public hearing statement and this evening, and we'll also share those questions with the team after tonight's hearing, so they have them. Okay, so thank you all for your great questions. We're going to move on to the next part of our evening, which is the actual public hearing. Just want to mention a couple things, and that's, we're here to take your comments officially for the record, but that's not the only way you can submit a comment. You can also submit official comments after this hearing or during the hearing via My Enviro, which is our online system. And there's directions here on the screen. By providing your comments directly to My Enviro, you can access it by looking for application HQH-Q 4AN-1818Y. Natalie's also going to put a link directly into the chat on your screen. You can also send comments in by mail to John Jones, and it's open for 10 days after this public hearing, so it goes open until June 26th, 2026. All right, and we'll put that in the chat. We'll also remind you again after we're done here. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, who's going to read our official hearing statement to get this part kicked off. So, John, go ahead and you can read the statement. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read this statement into the record. It's rather long and dry, but bear with me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Jones, and I am the district representative in the Water Resource Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, EGLE. I will be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission number HQH-Q48N-1818Y. With me tonight from EGLE are Andy Hartz, Warren District Supervisor of the Water Resource Unit, Kyle Alexander of the Field Operations Support, Water Resource Manager, and Garwood, Manager of Field Operations Support Unit. The public hearing agenda. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information about why we are here tonight. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resource Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, a stream, or a wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection, or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, PA 451. We are here tonight because Panattoni Development has proposed the following: permanently impact 13.55 acres of wetland, install 6 culverts in regulated streams for internal road construction and 2 additional culverts for above ground cable crossing, fill and abandon approximately 573 linear feet of existing stream channel to construct a building, construct 6 stormwater detention ponds within 500 feet of regulated stream, excavate material from 0.41 acres of wetland for the construction of 2 of the detention ponds, install 6 12-inch stormwater outfall structures to discharge pre-treated stormwater from the ponds to the regulated streams on site, install 6 culverts in regulated streams. Oops, I got that one already. Construct 2 high power line towers in regulated wetland. Temporary impacts include 0.27 acres of temporary wetland impact and placing 1 temporary bridge crossing for construction access and staging. Mitigation for wetland impacts through the purchase of wetland mitigation bank credits from an EGLE-approved wetland mitigation bank in the Huron River watershed. Mitigate for stream impacts by creating 1,174 linear feet of new stream channel on site. The purpose of the public hearing. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 303 Wetlands Protection and Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the stream and wetlands. When reviewing an application for permit under provisions of Part 301, EGLE is charged with making the following considerations as required by Section 30106. The department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. The department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under provisions of Part 303 Wetlands Protection of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Part 30304 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. A permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resource. A permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following. A, the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in wetland, or B, a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the Panattoni Development Project an opportunity to provide information to EGLE that we can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is, by law, not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. But before I do, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the June 4th edition of the Belleville Independent. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. 1. First, EGLE has had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. 2. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that raise their hand in the Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be muted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association that you may represent. Each person will be given 3 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. How the information will be used. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be a part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on June 26, 2026. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE MyEnviro portal website and searching for the application number HQHQ4-8N1818Y. Thank you for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. I appreciate that. Just if you did a couple things, I'll just remind people about it in case you didn't catch that. We will be calling up people first by when you register for the hearing, if you clicked on that you want to make a comment, I'm going to be calling those people up first. And then when we're through with them, I will indicate, if anybody else wants to make a comment, and you can raise your hand using the raise hand icon in Zoom. Each person only gets one comment. If you'd like to provide additional comments, that's fine, but you have to do it through MindViro or through the mail. The comments tonight are just one each. When you're making your comment, if I call you up, if you have additional people like in your household that are there with you who also want to make a comment, please just let me know that. Like, let me know if your wife's there, your son's there, somebody that wants to also make comment, and you can put them on the line, and then they'll have time to make comment as well. But the only way I know that is if you let me know. And I think that's it. So we got Andy and John both up here to listen. And what I'm going to just start doing. Oh, one more thing is that we do have a timer that's going to pop up when you start your comments. It's going to be 3 minutes. You'll see it in the upper window of your screen. Also, when you have 1 minute left, 1 minute remaining, you're going to hear a ding. It sounds like this. So when you hear that, that means just to let you know you have 1 minute left. And if your time expires, I will break in and let you know. All right, so just going to look at my list of people who indicated they wanted to make a comment. And when we do this, Natalie will unmute you. The first person is Connie Boris. And then after Connie, it's going to be Caleb Benor. So Connie, if you're there, looks like you can go and unmute yourself on your end and make your comment.
Right, thank you for the opportunity to present some comments here. My name is Dr. Connie Boris. I'm Executive Director of the Wayne County Conservation District. That's a local unit of government under the state of Michigan. I have some very serious issues with the application. It's incomplete. The owner or end user was not identified in the application. It is inaccurate. The wetland delineation report and the data forms in particular is very confusing. They don't name the drains or the streams that are going to be decimated or destroyed. Let's begin with the erroneous wetland delineation by Barr Engineering. It seriously underestimated the wetland acreage. EGLE's on-site wetland reviews stated that the applicant's consultant missed identifying 2.5 acres of regulated wetlands. So kudos to EGLE for doing that. However, both Barr and EGLE missed identifying rare and imperiled wetlands. You must do that. They are regulated wetlands by the state of Michigan under Part 303. I have information that there are these rare and imperiled wetlands that were not identified by Barr Engineering. Lake Plain Wet Prairie, Lake Plain Wet Mesic Prairie, Wet Mesic Flatwoods, and Southern Hardwood Swamp. You have to identify these, and you know what that will do once you do that. It means your wetland mitigation ratio will really increase. Right now, the wetland mitigation ratio is wrong because it does not identify the rare or imperiled wetlands under the site. So you're underestimating it. If it's rare and imperiled, you're going to have a minimum ratio of at least 5 acres of mitigation for every 1 acre of impacted imperiled wetlands. So Niswander's bank of only having 21 acres is not going to cut it for a wetland mitigation. Also, I believe Barr Engineering, they used the wrong regional supplement. They use the north central northeast, which when you're east of Hannon Road, you're supposed to be using the Midwest USACO regional settlement. Another thing is on the wetland determination data forms, there's a lack of attention to detail. For Upland 3, the water table present is the question. They answer yes and they answer no. You can't have them both. It's one or the other. Saturation present, yes and no. It can't be that way. There's only one answer. Upland 4, wetland hydrology present. You answered yes and no. You can't do that. That shows sloppiness and inaccuracy. So bottom line, we need to have a brand new complete wetland delineation done by a competent independent third party, such as the Michigan Natural Features Inventory.
And this,
Also, the
Dr. Morris, we got to have you wrap up. Thank you.
Wayne County Conservation District wants the T and E species. Everything you have right now, please email that to us. And I wouldn't call this project cannoli.
Okay,
because,
Dr. Morris, I have to have you wrap up because
Yeah,
we got to get other
okay.
people on. So,
All right, that's it.
thank you. If you do have additional comments, of course, you can add them to my Enviro and submit them that way. So
I
thank
always
you
do
your
that for the
comments.
Conservation District.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have Lauren Eaton. Lauren, we're looking for you. We'll unmute your line as soon as we got you. Okay, looks like you should be able to unmute yourself. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I just would like to say that I am Lauren Eaton. I am the monitoring manager at Friends of the Rouge, a local nonprofit in the Rouge River watershed, which is just north of the Huron River watershed. I would like to say that wetlands provide critical habitat for many species, but also operate as a buffer for flooding and erosion. Because of their sponge-like ability to absorb water, they can slow the momentum of floodwaters. As many of us know, Wayne County has already lost 90% of its wetlands, and we can't afford to lose any more. The surrounding counties have not lost quite as many, but still have significant losses. Benefits of wetlands include filtering of sediments, pollutants, and nutrients, helping to slow water flow and prevent floods, support diverse wildlife, allow water to be returned to the ground during dry periods. In the Great Lakes region, we'll have increasingly have periods of intense short-term rain coupled with periods of drought, and wetlands help the ecosystem weather those impacts. We need these natural features such as wetlands to help mitigate the negative impacts from flooding. I looked at the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments flooding risk tool dashboard, and all but one of the surrounding roads at this site already have a medium level risk for flooding. So the proposed impacts of destroying over 13 acres of wetlands, adding culverts, abandoning 573 linear feet of existing stream channel will very likely negatively impact this land's ability to store and filter stormwater, which will be a problem in the future, again, with these more frequent and severe storms. So increased flooding, erosion, and pollutants are caused by the increase in development over necessarily wetlands areas such as this. And so for these reasons, this proposed project, in my opinion, is not in the public's best interest, and I encourage EGLE to deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we had one other person that wanted to make a comment, but that person is not in attendance tonight. So we will open it up at this point to see if anybody else would like to make a comment. So if you do, just go ahead and click the raise hand icon on your Zoom toolbar, and we will do our best to call you up in the order in which you are raising your hand. So we've got a couple hands raised. Just a reminder that if you don't want to voice your comment tonight, you can submit it through My Enviro, and all the information about My Enviro, accessing the documents as well as making comments can be accessed to the link that Natalie dropped into the chat. Okay, looks like the first person who's got their hand raised is Evan, and just want to make sure I remind you guys that when we call you up, make sure you reinstate your name and that you say any group or affiliation that you might be associated with. You guys have been doing great doing that already, but just want to remind you. All right, so Evan, you can go ahead and make your comment. You're unmuted on our end.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
One moment, please.
Allow us to radically rethink it.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I don't agree, but I think we can talk about this.
Hello, Evan, are you going to make a
Hey,
comment?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Now, Evan, I think you might not be able to hear us, it sounds like. So
I can hear
might...
you. My apologies.
Okay.
I just briefly want to give comment. First of all,
Go ahead.
can I begin with a question?
This is only for comments at this point only. If you have a question, we'll explain how to ask questions at the end. So if you want to make your comment, though, that'd be great right now.
Yes, absolutely. So I and I apologize if this has already been covered, but I was looking at comments from EGLE to the application itself. And I don't imagine that those comments, or rather correction requests, have been provided by the applicant. If all of those correction requests have been addressed by the applicant with an updated application, then perhaps you could direct me to that so that I could address them in written comment afterwards. But as it stands, the document looks like it was updated as of late May, so I kind of doubt that they've been addressed. But there's a number of correction requests from EGLE, and one in particular by Mr. Jones I'll bring up, which is that the application does not explain really why the site search was limited to 200 acres in size, these enormous, this kind of enormous acreage. And the comment by Mr. Jones asks for an explanation as to that. It says it's unclear why constructing on it with a more condensed design on a smaller site would not be feasible and prudent. Additionally, some of these comments address brownfields. The application kind of summarily dismisses the idea of building on brownfields because it says that it would be hard, and that is not in compliance with Part 303. The fact that it would be hard or harder than building on wetlands does not satisfy the applicant's obligations under 303. And the comments here, the correction request here says, it's understood that developing on a brownfield adds a layer of complexity, but you cannot approach this category without specific examples to demonstrate your contention that no suitable brownfield sites exist for the project. And that's just a couple. I mean, there's many, many, many areas of this application that are deficient. And then just broadly, I'll say, I mean, it's 2026. We're all aware of, the incredibly short supply of land with any ecosystem function whatsoever, even land with ecosystem function between two freeways. There's so much totally trashed land in the state. There's so much totally trashed land in the county. Just because this is ultimately going to be a Google site. I mean, they certainly have the resources, and whatever developer certainly has the resources to mitigate a brownfield site to the degree
Hey,
that would
Evan, I'm gonna need you to
require.
wrap it up, please.
Yeah, so just in wrapping it up, I mean, let's not just get steamrolled by this fervor for these massive data centers. We know there's a bald eagle nest there. Like, let's get real here. Put it on a brownfield, please.
Okay. Thank you for your comment, Evan. Night. Okay, next, I got one more hand raised. So if you want to make a comment, please click the raise hand icon and let me know that you want to make a comment tonight. The next person up is Mackenzie Wallachek. Mackenzie, you can go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. My name is Mackenzie Wallachek. I am a resident living just down the road from the proposed data center. I'm speaking tonight to request EGLE deny the Part 303 permit for this proposed project. Under Michigan law, a wetland permit must be denied if there's feasible, prudent alternatives, or if the project disrupts our shared aquatic resources, and this project fails on both counts. I also want to talk about concerns with the destruction of wetland functions. Wetlands are not just empty wetlands, they are nature's sponge and absorbing millions of gallons of stormwater. And if we allow the applicant to pave over these and fill these wetlands, the water has to go somewhere. And we need to make sure that we safeguard our communities, and we can afford to risk property values and infrastructure for private development at the cost of Google's. I also want to share a second point on failure to explore alternatives. The law requires the applicant to provide that there's no feasible other alternatives exist. and I don't feel that that has been met. This project could easily be moved to another site, and we want to make sure that this we're keeping the community, not only the humans, but the fish and wildlife at heart when we make these decisions. And finally, the destruction of that wildlife habitat for the critters that need it. They not only provide habitat for sensitive species, but also filter and clean our waters. And damaging and disrupting this local water table can threaten the balance of our entire ecosystem. We have the right to clean water and safe infrastructure and a preserved environment. In closing, I just want to have consideration for the environmental and public costs of this project, and be mindful how vastly they outweigh any private benefit. This disruption is unacceptable if it's coming from a person who lives nearby, and I really urge EGLE to stand up for the residents and follow NREPA guidelines and deny this permit. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mackenzie. Okay, up next is Eric McCleary. Eric, you can unmute your line when ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name's Eric McCleary. I'm an organizer with Clean Water Action. We wanted to come forward and essentially point out this project is moving too quickly. First off, this is a regulated wetland. One of the previous commenters pointed out how the the initial wetland delineation was not complete, was poorly done. We need to make sure that we're going through complete process so that we are not rushing these issues into our communities when they're not going to benefit our communities. Specifically, according to our state law, we have to apply avoidance and minimization standards.
Hey, Eric, I think we might have lost you. Can you guys confirm you can't hear Eric either? Or?
I cannot hear Eric, no.
Yeah,
He just
Eric,
dropped off.
you kind of dropped off there. Can you hear us? Check, check.
Yeah, I don't have him.
All right, Eric, unfortunately, you dropped, your
back
line
in.
dropped. So we'll check back in with you in a minute. Sorry about that. Doesn't usually happen, but we'll check in with you in a minute again. I'm gonna right now, I'm going to ask if anybody else has got a comment. If you could click the raise hand icon and let us know if you want to make a comment. Eric, if you're there and you got your microphone situation figured out, you can click raise hand icon again, and I'll try you again there and continue where you left off, I guess. Yeah, just hold it open for another couple seconds here. Make sure no one else has got a comment they want to make. Okay, I am not seeing any other raised hands from our attendees tonight. So, oh, no, there is a raised hand here. Hold on a second. Dr. Connie Morris, you're there again?
Yeah, could I just say
well,
one more?
you already made a comment, but if you have somebody else there that would like to make a comment, you
No,
can have them talk. Okay, I apologize, but thank you. All right. With that, I'm gonna turn it back over to John, and he's gonna read our closing statement for tonight. Go ahead, John.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until June 26, 2026. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks, John. Just want to make a couple more announcements here. That's just a reminder on other official ways to make comments. Maybe you have additional comments you want to make and didn't have full time to make them. You think about something else you wanted to add, or maybe you didn't feel comfortable making a comment tonight during our hearing. You can submit a comment through the MyEnviro system. That's our online system. Natalie did put a direct link into the chat. So if you click on that, it'll take you right to where you can make your comments, and you might want to bookmark that if you see that. Also, you can send it by mail to or by email, excuse me, I should say, I guess, to John Jones, and his email address is jonesj, so JONES J71 at michigan.gov. And just a reminder, the comment period will close on June 26, 2026. If you have additional questions, here is John Jones's phone number and email address. You can reach out to him directly. The questions that were provided that you guys submitted tonight, I'll also share with the team. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Hartz. And Andy, do you have any additional remarks you'd like to make tonight?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I just want to thank everybody that came out and took their time out of their evening to give us comments on the project tonight. I think that we heard some good comments tonight. We didn't hear a lot, but we heard some good comments. I appreciate Fran and the whole development team being available as well for questions if questions came their way. So the public notice and the public hearing, is an important process in our consideration of impacts to natural resources, and having public hearings and soliciting comments and making comments. Hopefully we make comments easy to submit either through MyEnviro or email or snail mail. So I just want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you, Jim, for hosting us tonight.
All right, thanks to the team that was here tonight, and thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you have a good rest of your evening. Thank you. Good night.